All right, guys, I'm here with one of the, if unless you're a road racing fan, you probably never heard of him, but one of the most influential names in road racing in North America, Tony Ave. Tony, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Not bad, not bad. Welcome to the show. I'm gonna get right into it. Trans-Am, 2015 season, two more races to go. You are a competitor sometimes. You are a car builder, and you also are part of the series. How do you rate the series so far this year?
I think the series from a competitive standpoint and the shows that we're putting on, for sure, I think is earned an A. We've got three different classes of racing. They're all still up for grabs championship-wise. TA2 has grown by leaps and bounds. We've got a lot of cars in there, largely because it requires a bit less budget, and the cars are pretty even. Mm-hmm. But nobody's really running away. We've got 8 really competitive guys. A couple guys have had better luck than others is the only reason it's not like an 8-man dead heat for that thing. So, and on the Trans-Am side, the big class, the traditional Trans-Am cars, you know, we've got a super tight battle between Amy Ruman and one of my drivers, Paul Fix. That's going to probably go right down to the wire. And they've been tooth and nail all year, so I don't think we could have asked for much more.
It wasn't that long ago that Trans-Am was, as a series, all but dead.
Yep.
It had been canceled and everything. Then you and a couple other guys, you bought the series. You brought in some people. What do you think are the changes that has made? I mean, you're averaging over 50 cars a race now.
Yep.
What do you think you've done, that your team has done, that has revitalized the series so much?
Okay, so the single biggest thing was we decided that we needed to put the racer first. They have a lot of choices of where they can race. There's a lot of places that you can go pro racing, and there's also really some good high-end club racing deals that you can do. Mm-hmm. The first step was, let's make the paddock a place people want to come to. They look forward to coming to the next race, right? And that was step one. The other thing was coming up with a format for a support class like TA2 to attract all of the guys out there that I knew could afford a certain budget that doesn't really fit within what some of the other sanctioning bodies offer. And we kept that so that cars aren't obsoleted every few years. You know, you can buy a car and that car will last you for as long as probably you want to do it. You can rebody them inexpensively if you want to change brands, make them look a little nicer. And we kept the technology out of it. That's the big thing. Mm-hmm. And so those two things have a lot to do with it. Plus, we have worked very hard to cultivate relationships with what we call bucket list tracks, right? So while there are street courses that everybody likes to run, Long Beach where we used to run, Three Rivers where we ran a couple years ago, most guys want to go to the Road Americas, the Mid-Ohio's, the Road Atlantas. That's where they want to run these cars. And so we've managed to find a home with those tracks, mm-hmm. supporting NASCAR races in association with the bigger vintage groups at some events, and sometimes we're just the headliner. We were at Lime Rock this year. The place was packed. We go to Brainerd every year, and we're building a great fan base up there. So I think that it's a combination of those things that has made the biggest difference.
You're also a car builder. You mentioned your one of your drivers, Paul Fix, is in the title chase with
Yep.
Amy. You also, this year, you debuted the Cadillac.
Yep.
How did that deal come about? Because I heard about it. I knew because some people told me about it, but I kept my mouth shut because I was asked to keep my mouth shut. How did that deal come about?
Okay, so really what started was I had kind of pushed to move the bodies for the top-line class back away from Corvettes and Jaguars and return them to Camaros, Mustangs, and Challengers, and I didn't really win that argument. The other guys felt there was enough value in running Corvettes and stuff like that we were going to keep doing it. So, which was okay if that's what they think. And the new Corvettes look great. But really, guys wanted an alternative. You know, Chevy guys, GM guys, they wanted an alternative to Corvettes. And as such, Kerry Hitt at ACP decided he wanted to do a Cadillac. We had some competitors that did some business in various ways with Cadillac dealers, with Cadillac as a supplier, so on and so forth, and they wanted to do a Cadillac, kind of to be different, but also, you know, to be a little more in line with what they would drive every day, or with what maybe affects their business a bit more. So that was where it really came from. Kerry Hitt from Advanced Composite Products offered to do it. He was excited about it. He's racing one now. Just, everybody likes the Corvettes, but I don't think you really have to have more variety out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it stemmed from that. I think you're going to see him do a Camaro also, but the Cadillac it fit the right deal, right? I mean, it fits the demographic of a Corvette buyer as well because the price of the cars are quite similar, right? So, and it looks great. So it just worked out.
I love Doug Peterson's his Dazzle camouflage paint scheme on his.
Well, you know what? People either love that or hate it. They can't understand why we painted it like that, but I think the more, if you think about it, it's making everybody talk about it, even if they're saying they don't like it. And there's no such thing as bad publicity when you're talking about your race cars, as far as I'm concerned. So I think it was the right thing to do.
That is true. That is true. I just noticed they just announced also in the TA class there's going to be the 2016 Mustang coming in also.
Yep, I have 2 chassis here waiting for those bodies. We have the bulk of the bodies here. We're just waiting for the noses and tails. And I will have at least 2 Mustangs on the grid for the first round next year in Sebring. So, and probably more than that, but we'll have at least 2 on the grid. And, I think you'll see maybe as many as 4 or 5. You're going to see another 3 or 4 Cadillacs. I'm sure there'll be some more new Corvettes. So it's a lot of exciting things happening in that class. People haven't seen it yet, but they're going to be really surprised by early next year how different that grid looks.
Yeah, you pretty much dedicate your car construction to the TA class.
I do.
How many more give us a ballpark figure. How many more cars do you think will be on the grid next year?
Well, I'm building 6 right now, and 4 of those guys intend on running all the races. The other 2 are going to run a handful, right? And I don't really know. I think you'll see the TA deal average up towards 16, 17, 18 next year, but there will be races where there's 30 plus. Today in road racing, your lead fast class, if you have more than 10, you're doing really well. And that's just the way it is, right? And for us to creep up towards 20, I think, is spectacular. It's not like the old days, right, where you'd have 40 of those things around and have one class on the racetrack. That's just not how racing works anymore, at least not road racing. Even IMSA they average about 10 cars per class. So it's just the way it is. And I think if we can get ourselves closer to 20, over 15 on an average, that's a home run.
Okay. The series 2016. What do you think this is going to be looking like for the series next year? You expecting big changes, or is pretty much same things going on now, just with more cars?
Okay, so we, as owners, have been discussing that at length, and we have another strategy meeting at COTA to determine this coming weekend what changes, if any, we need to make. I think what you're going to see is TA2 is going to basically be the same, although there's going to be a new Mustang and new Camaro bodies. They won't look significantly different. We're changing suppliers, and we're sort of doing a few things to them to make them a bit more even aero-wise, so that there's no question about one being better than another. But to the spectator, they're going to look about the same. The cars are going to be the same. Engines are going to be the same. We are tightening up some of the rules there. Everybody's going to run a common ECU and common wire harnesses, so we don't have to worry about anybody doing traction control, things like that. And I don't think anybody's doing that now, but it's just something to safeguard against. I would say the one thing they are going to change is there is one option in TA2 to run a carburetor on one particular engine, which I used to win at Lime Rock. I then won at Road America with fuel injection, but the carburetor option is going away. You're going to have to run fuel injection. And that's not really something I agree with. I kind of fought that. I think the carburetor has a place there, but collectively as a group, they decided it was better to maybe just have fuel injection, so that's what we're going to do. So other than that, on the Trans-Am side, you're going to see new bodies, but we expect everything else to be about the same, just more of the same. But TA3, you might see some more changes. I'm drafting in a couple of friends to help us on the rules side to get that a little bit more attractive to more people, and I think if that works, by the end of 2016, early 2017, you'll see our TA3 fields will be at least as big as TA2.
Oh, okay. Actually, I got some people who want to race more Porsches than TA3, and they're bugging me. And I go, I don't do nothing with the rules of TA3. Your schedule. There's one thing you notice when you see your schedule. You're a very East Coast centric series. You're
right.
Eastern U.S. series.
Right.
Is that just happens to be that way, or was that actually planned out?
All right, so we did go to the West Coast in 2009. We went to Portland, and then in 2010 and 2011, we raced in Miller, and I was lucky enough to win both of those races, so I'd love to go back there. But as it turns out today, the bulk of our competitors are based east of the Mississippi, okay? And we do have some interest from West Coast teams to run. It's just the way it kind of works out today. We can kind of only accommodate 12 races total, and that's about it for what we think is good. We'd be stretching the teams too far if we tried to run more than that budget-wise. We want to get as many guys to run all the races as we can. So that's kind of a limiting factor. I think what you'll probably see us do, or I might do it sort of with a separate group, we may do 4 or 5 West Coast-based races that are not part of the Trans-Am Championship, just to get kind of people spooled up out there and start to get a good foothold on how many competitors we really get by going out west. And if we could be certain of we would be able to replace the ones that can't afford to go from the East Coast, we may do that. Now, to be fair, we have tried to do West Coast races the last couple years. We just feel like you need to be able to do 2 in a row to make it worth everybody's while.
Right.
And we are in a fortunate position of being, a lot of tracks want us to race there now. And so we're limiting ourselves to 12, so we're already turning down East Coast tracks. It's hard to go from where you know you're going to have 60 cars show up to a race out west, as bad as I want to race out there, when you might only get 25, right? So we have to crawl before we can walk, basically.
You keep on talking about how it's for the drivers and the teams and everything. When does it happen that the decisions start being made for the fan? You might start saying, okay, the drivers might not like this rule, but the fans will love it.
Okay,
when do you start making that
that's
decision?
a very good question, and that's something that we within our ownership group, that's some of the tensest conversations, is when do you make those decisions? And I think the smart play has been, let's get enough drivers into it and committed to it and hooked to it, and then we may have to make some things that we wouldn't do if we only had 20 cars showing up. We might be able to say, right, okay, we are getting 74 cars at a Sebring and so on and so forth. We have enough leverage over what these guys are doing that they'll trust us. They might not like it, but they'll go out west, or they'll run a different tire, or whatever the case might be. I think there's a balance there, but for sure, the long-term view, you have to do what the fans want to see. But I have to say that I think the racing that we offer right now, as close as it is giving the fans what they want to see. So now it's just a matter of getting to where they are in a more convenient manner.
All right, one more question that's not Trans-Am related, but still racing.
Yep.
Earlier this year, it was announced that you were partnering up with Riley Technologies to build an LMP3 car.
Yep.
How's that going along?
It is going great. We have 2 of the tubs starting to go together now. We're getting very close to having some of our design ideas finalized so that we can crash test it. And I expect to have at least 1 or 2 cars probably in the European Le Mans Series in 2016. That doesn't start until, of course, April, which is easy. And, what we see, what develops in this country for LMP3 cars remains to be seen. There was a time when it was going to be the replacement for PC and IMSA. In my opinion, they made a mistake in a way by testing a car that really wasn't ready to be tested at Watkins Glen in June, and it made the P3 cars look a lot less than they really are. So the PC owners weren't excited about that, and they want to continue on with their cars for another year. I think, to be fair, the P3 car has a place there, but whether or not they do it or not, I'm confident that you're also going to see a lot of those things racing in this country. We just don't know with who yet.
All right. Looking forward to seeing that, especially in Europe. Hey, at least you get to have a European vacation every once in a while, right?
Yeah, well, at least that's what my wife says, at least.
All right, Tony. Thanks a lot. You gave us some really good answers there. I'm sure some people are going to be like raising a few eyebrows of what you said, but
that's what I do.
That's the idea. We're talking with Tony Ave from Tony Ave Motorsports. Thanks again.
Thank you.